So we're here with another amazing guest from Google. Welcome to the show, Angana Ghosh, Director of Product Management on Android. It's so nice to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. It's super exciting to be part of the show.
Yeah, all of us here, we love talking. It's something that I feel not a lot of outlets or a lot of, tech podcasts or videos really touch upon much, and it's accessibility. It's something that is very vital to the usability of mobile devices and just devices in general. But unless you're personally affected by it or you know someone who's personally, needs these tools, it's not something that many of us unfortunately think about. But I have a lot of people who tell me, "Oh, these tools. Can you please talk about more about TalkBack, about captions, about these other important input tools?" And one of the things that you guys are announcing today is an improvement to one of the coolest features that I think is available on many Android devices that probably a lot of people don't even know exists. It's an upgrade to live captions that you guys are now calling Expressive Captions. So first of all, congrats on the launch. And I wanted to ask you if you could explain to our audience what exactly are expressive captions and how does it evolve the live captions experience on Android?
Yeah, thank you for this question. Our team has been working for years, on captioning, and it has been helping our accessibility users as well as everyone. And today we are excited to bring expressive captions to our users. So, expressive captions is a new feature in live captioning. The goal is to increase understandability by introducing emotions, feelings, and context that largely has been left out of automatic captioning. So, our team partnered with experts, including like theater artists, speech language pathologists, members of deaf and hard of hearing community to learn two things: what's important to emphasize within audio and where the current technology falls short. By current technology, I mean live captions falls short. So in this initial launch, we are including three features. The intensity of speech, you'll see this, we are representing in all caps when somebody is yelling. Vocal burst like sighing, gasping, and then ambient sounds like captioning music play in the background.
One thing that I just have to say real quick along this feature set, like we're talking a lot about accessibility, and this feature is definitely like a like premium example of, I feel, some of the real cool advancements of Android in the accessibility realm that that's come along in the last couple of years, like you said, Mishaal. At the same time, this is a feature that so many more people, not just people who stand to benefit from using it, are getting in the habit of using it. So I, as someone who might not need, put that in air quotes, a feature set like this in order to use my phone, still get really excited about these updates because it's just so incredibly useful for everyone and not just people who absolutely need these features. So I think what you guys are doing is really wonderful. I'm curious how you train this model to recognize those things. It's easy for AI models to recognize words and everything, but outside of that, we're talking about sighs and maybe grunts or cheers, that sort of stuff. How do you train a model to recognize those things in order to call it out effectively?
Yeah, so EC, I might go between saying EC and expressive captions, so bear with me. We call it EC internally. So expressive captions uses a combination of models to recognize high energy speech, nonverbal sounds like sighs and gasps, as I was talking about, as well as background sounds. And we are using AI to process incoming audio on device to recognize this non-speech and ambient sounds, along with transcribing speech and recognizing this appropriate expressive stylization. And all these models are working together nicely to give the experience that we want to bring to our users. So to achieve this, the team trained the model using this efficient CNNs, this convolutional neural networks that analyze the power frequency components in the audio. So it's not just one model. There are like number of on-device models working in tandem here.
So speaking of which, these enhancements to live captions, you said focus mostly on a lot of nonverbal cues and being able to capture, say, excitement or things like gasps, sighs, and things like that. So I'm kind of wondering if a lot of what is being introduced now to the captioning is support for nonverbal cues. Why then is the expressive caption feature only available for users in the US who set their language to English?
Well, two things. And this is a great question, by the way. And we obsess on this a lot. So, number one, while you rightly say that some of these new expressive pieces are not words, the model itself is tailored to English. And all these new expressions are being interpreted within the context of English language, including understanding the intensity, for example. And number two, which is also super important, we also recognize that language and emotional expressions are deeply nuanced and can vary depending on somebody's cultural context, for example. So, for example, if you think about intensity in speech, that can sometimes vary, especially based on different regions. And by doing in English in US first, we want to give the team to learn and then figure out how to bring it to other languages.
Currently, right now, Captions works best on audio with clear speech, low background noise, all that stuff. But there's, as we know, a lot of media out there, a lot of videos that don't actually meet those conditions. So that can be a challenge. Has Google explored applying some sort of like noise reduction algorithm to the audio before it processes? Like, is that part of the equation here in order to generate these captions, to filter out the noise so it gets it right on its pass?
Another amazing question. And as a team, we thought about this a lot. And while as a company, we have certainly done a lot of research in this area, we actually decided actively not to apply to expressive captions in this first launch. We might do it later, but who knows? But we actually made a decision not to do it. And here is why. One of our priorities for expressive captions is to truly bring equitable audio experience. And what I mean by that, it is similar to how somebody who is able to hear, near perfectly, would interpret the audio for themselves. So if there is background noise, this person would not be able to hear completely the audio. So we want easy expressive captions to behave in the same way that people aren't able to completely reduce the background noise or ignore like overlapping voices in a crowd.
Great answer. And I like the part where you mentioned you want to bring an equitable, media consumption experience to everyone. And, we can all, like many of us here, don't have any need for live captions or expressive captions, but there are many people who will need it. But if I were to go out and, say I wanted to buy a new Android smartphone, currently there's no real way for me to know whether or not that device will have live caption or expressive caption available. As you mentioned in the blog post, that this feature will be available on devices where live captions is supported, but there's no such list available. And from my own research and understanding, there are still some devices out there that do not support live caption at all. So I wanted to ask you, is Google doing anything to make live caption or the new expressive caption available on all Android devices and not just the select that are already supported?
Yeah, so at high level for accessibility, we want our experiences to come to as many Android devices as possible. And it has been really wonderful to see that majority of Android devices support live captions and really see so many of people getting benefited, just like you have been talking about it. I use live caption to sometimes join 3 meetings at a time. So it's really helping users from in various day-to-day cases. And the reason why you do not see it on all devices is because it needs certain things. It needs Android 14 plus and at least 4 GB of RAM. And we made a conscious decision to let device manufacturers decide whether to enable live captions on their eligible devices because they need to be really happy with the end-to-end experience because this is a system-wide experience and it's not an app-specific one. And generally what we have found is that this is not a problem, but still we want OEMs to give the option. And I think there's also another bit. Live caption was built to be entirely on device. So no data leaves your phone or your device, and users can use it on airplane mode as well. But that piece also requires device manufacturers to opt in.
Yeah, that kind of ties in with potentially. Actually, I don't know if it does. So you can tell me. But when I'm thinking about not just the like broad spectrum of devices and kind of specifications and everything to support a feature like this, I'm also thinking of the wide variety of languages out there. And I know that this is launching here, in the U.S. with English, but there are many times where you're watching something and it's multilingual. It might be a multilingual video, partial English, partial Spanish, whatever. And so I'm curious how Expressive Captions ties into that experience. It handles those situations where it detects in what we're watching, what we're listening to, non-English speech. What does it do at this point, and what might it do in the future?
Yeah, being a multilingual speaker myself, this question really resonates. Expressive captions, because we are just launching in English today, it would be applied to the audio present in English. But it works with live captions, which is supported in over a dozen languages. So on Pixel, if presented with audio in multiple languages that are supported, then live caption will suggest you to download the language pack if it's not already on your phone. And once you have that language pack, the captions will switch automatically between the supported languages. And we recognize, getting multilingual right is really hard. I also work on input. Multilingualism is one of our hardest problems, and we obsess over it, and we recognize there's still room for improvement. And we are here to continue to welcome feedback from folks as they use the feature.
And one question I have for, once this rolls out, will users have the ability to actually tune the amount of expressiveness in captions for different contexts? Say, for example, you have background noise being captioned to give a sense of atmosphere and context, such as, if you're watching a football game, you hear cheers in the background. But for situations where the noise might be incidental, as opposed to actually part of what's going on in the video, can a user change expressive caption settings to pay less attention to background noises?
So, with the first version of the expressive captions, that's not available. Because again, we made a very conscious decision to opt for simplicity for the user as we were doing this multiple rounds of user testing. And of course, our team is, using this initial rollout as an opportunity to get additional feedback on the experience and what is truly helpful. But couple of things to call out here. Background noises are meant to provide all the context that is typically in audio. But what we have done is that we have interspersed this sound tags throughout the speech. So the flow is easy for people, and you will notice it as you use the product. We don't constantly show it so it doesn't become overwhelming. And then we will, of course, continue to improve and adjust the model as we better understand how people engage with it and what they find useful. Another area of focus for the team was around intensity of the speech. Like I was saying, it can vary a lot depending on the context of the environment and the speaker. And with this initial version of EC, we wanted to accurately interpret when somebody is yelling or screaming as opposed to speaking passionately, but not necessarily with high emotional intensity. So, what we found is that users first want to understand that whether a yelling or a screaming is happening, and then about passionate speaking. So we went after that, and in the product, you would see as a result, all caps are typically triggered when the feature recognizes this high energy moments in speech.
Sounds good. I'm really looking forward to trying it out. I mean, I've used live captions when I recognize that I haven't, oh, I should turn this on because, as you might know, it's become kind of a trend where people use captions.
It has.
Just because, it's kind of hard to hear what's going on in the video, even if you don't actually, have any impairments that are audio related. So I'm kind of curious to see exactly how well this works in practice and looking forward to it rolling out on my Android device. And I believe the blog post says that actually starting today, it'll be available in the US in English on any Android device that has live caption. So most Android users out there should be getting this expressive captions update. And yeah, I think that's all the questions that we have for you today, Angana. Thank you so much for joining us. And is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with?
No, thank you so much. It has been fun. We always love feedback, so you know how to reach us. Give us feedback. We would love to continue working on this.
That's right. Send us emails and we'll read them out and we'll forward that feedback in the best way we can to Google.
Thank you.
We'll do our best. Thank you, Angana. So nice to meet you and so nice to talk about this topic. Appreciate it.